Hello, and welcome back to another art video. For this video, I had a weird question. I don't know if you're like me and your brain asks itself weird questions that will bring you nowhere. And this time I asked myself, what would cows look like if we would have bred them the same way we bred horses? Because let's be honest, breeding animals can drastically change their appearance. Simply look at dogs. But before we go, please consider subscribing and sharing the video. Okay, let's go. First of all, I would like to say that I am not a biologist, so this little experiment is mostly artistic. But I did make some research. First, I needed to know what were the physical characteristics that domestication changed in horses. So I searched up ancient horse. But that was a bit too far back. We only started to domesticate horses 5,500 years ago in Central Asia. But once I got the proper time period, I started to get the proper informations. We started to domesticate the horse for locomotion, warfare, and ironically, milk as well. But what was interesting for me to know was the physical characteristics that changed during domestication. And here are the 4 differences that I found. Stronger legs, speed and endurance, enlarged muscles, and the horse passed from gait to gallop. I am not a horse girl, so I had to look up the meaning of gait. And from what I understand, it's a type of walk. Anyway, for my drawing, I think the most important ones were strong legs and enlarged muscles. So I'm gonna keep that in mind while drawing my cow horse. Now it was time to look up cows. What I really wanted to know was, what was the fastest cow breed? Like this, I could take inspiration from actual cows when I draw. While searching this, I stumbled upon some of the cutest thing ever. Have you ever heard of cow jockey? It's pretty much cowback riding. And it looks quite fun.
Holy cow! When Hannah Simpson couldn't afford a horse of her own, she opted for a less expensive option, a cow.
But anyway, I found out that the fastest cow breed was the Killari cattle, originating from India. And I can see how this cow is faster than other cows. Look at the long legs. But I really wanted to draw a cow that I'm more familiar with. So I chose the Holstein Friesian, a cow that originates from northern Holland. It is the most popular dairy cow. Okay, I think we have all the information we need to start drawing. Because I'm not used to draw animals, I had to start with some studies. I started by drawing horses to become more familiar with their form, stationary, and in movement. Then I moved on to the cows. I spent more time on the cows because I really needed to be more familiar with their forms. I love their tiny legs for their huge bodies, and they have such angular hip bones. I'm guessing it's the hip bone. Once I was more familiar with the cow and the horse, it was time to draw the cow horse. I already had a pretty good idea of how I wanted the cow horse to look like. I wanted long legs, angular hips, and longer neck, but not as long as the horse. I quickly find a version of the cow horse that I really enjoy. Because the horse was domesticated for warfare, why not making our cow horse a soldier? I started to work on an armor idea. Because it's me, obviously I wanted something a bit sci-fi. But for some reason I started without looking at any reference. So my first designs aren't the best. But as soon as I looked at references, it went much better. Unfortunately, I lost the footage. Okay, so at this point I had a pretty good idea of what the cow horse would look like. Now it was time for the soldier that was going to go on the cow horse. I'm not going to spend a long time on it because that's not the focal point of the video, and I'm not that great at drawing people. I mean, what is this position supposed to be? Okay, I was ready for the final piece. I started with a rough sketch to see where goes what. Once I had an idea of the general mapping of the composition, I started to draw the cow horse. I was pretty intimidated by drawing the cow horse and its soldier, so it took me a little bit of time. But once I got it, I was ready to start on the background. Weirdly, I really enjoy painting cities. I found them much easier to paint than nature. Like, am I supposed to paint each and every leaves, each and every cracks on the rocks, the little bumps and imperfections of nature? Whereas city is pretty straightforward. Follow perspective, paint, and put texture on it. And that's it. But I couldn't see the cow horse being in a sci-fi city. I imagined that the cow horse would be on a mountain, helping a soldier crossing a mountain ridge with their split hooves. So that's why I tackled a nature scene. I know I should have searched up how to paint a mountain or how to paint nature, but for some reason in this video I didn't really use much tutorial, as you can see. I will definitely do that in the future. Once I was done with the background, I started to paint the cow horse. If you haven't seen my previous art videos, my style is to have a pretty detailed background and simplified characters. That's why I really needed to add details to my background, but I will do that later on. Once the cow horse was fully drawn, it was time to add its armor. I wanted to touch upon the armor a little bit more. I added a breathing apparatus. Still in the idea that you're up high in the mountain, oxygen is probably pretty thin. Also, it added a pretty cyberpunk vibe. Once the cow horse and its armor was done, it was time for the soldier. The soldier was pretty straightforward. Its armor was heavily inspired by the techwear fashion. I also gave him a breathing apparatus. At first, I wanted to add him the same one as the cow horse, but it weirdly made me think of something. So, to make sure that I don't rip off anything, I added him a simple mask. I know his face is not looking really great, but I fixed that off camera. Off camera, I also added details to the background. But that's pretty much it. I was done. Okay, let's watch the final result. But before, please consider subscribing and let me know how you like this video down in the comments. Okay, let's have a look.